When I won the lottery, my parents immediately sought to claim my winnings to finance my golden child sister's future, ruining mine. They cast me out when I refused, but fate had different plans for me. I've always felt like the odd one out in my family. My younger sister, Bella, 22 at the time, was undeniably the favored one, constantly showered with attention and affection, while I was often left to navigate life's challenges independently. The disparity in our upbringing was evident from a tender age. Bella's desires were instantly fulfilled, whether it was new toys or clothes. But when I needed essential items like new shoes for school because mine had holes, I was simply told to make do. The preferential treatment permeated every aspect of our lives. Bella's artwork was proudly displayed, while mine often found its way into the trash. Our report cards met starkly different reactions. Hers were endlessly praised, while mine were barely acknowledged. When I achieved the honor roll in high school, my parents merely shrugged. But when Bella earned a B+ on a test, they celebrated with a fancy dinner. My parents consistently indulged Bella's every whim. She'd resort to tantrums, screaming and crying until she got her way. I quickly learned that good behavior yielded no rewards for me, while acting out only led to punishment. As we matured, the unfairness persisted. My high school graduation brought me a mere $50 card, whereas Bella, 2 years later, received a brand new car. I worked multiple part-time jobs to finance my community college education, while Bella enjoyed a full scholarship to an expensive private university, funded by my parents draining their savings and taking out loans. Every milestone in my life was treated as an afterthought, while Bella's achievements were celebrated like national holidays. When I secured my first professional job after college, my parents' response was a dismissive, "That's nice, dear." But when Bella landed an internship, they threw a huge party, inviting the entire extended family. The constant favoritism took a toll on my mental health over the years, leading to severe anxiety and depression and a perpetual feeling of inadequacy. I sought therapy independently to address these issues. Meanwhile, Bella became increasingly entitled and demanding, frequently calling our parents, expecting them to solve her problems. If they didn't immediately drop everything for her, she'd guilt-trip them mercilessly. Bella never developed self-reliance because our parents were always there to coddle her. I attempted to discuss the unfair treatment with my parents numerous times, but they always dismissed my concerns, claiming I was overly sensitive or jealous of my sister. They genuinely seemed oblivious to the harm their actions caused. Last year, I finally secured a well-paying job that enabled me to move out and gain some independence. However, as soon as I shared the news, my parents immediately began pressuring me about money. They insisted that, as the older sibling, it was my responsibility to start saving for Bella's future wedding, despite her not even being in a relationship. They expected me to set aside a significant portion of my salary just in case. When I pointed out my own expenses and future goals, they accused me of being selfish, asserting that family should always come first and I needed to make sacrifices for my sister's happiness. I felt a conflict within me. Part of me wanted to stand up for myself, but years of conditioning made it difficult. Ultimately, I reluctantly agreed to put some money aside each month for Bella's hypothetical wedding, but I also secretly began saving for my own aspirations. For years, I had dreamed of launching my own business, an apparel company specializing in frocks and dresses for little girls. But I knew I needed substantial startup capital. So, I started squirreling away whatever I could from each paycheck. Then, a few months ago, something incredible happened. I won $500,000 in the state lottery. I was ecstatic. This was precisely the boost I needed to finally pursue my entrepreneurial dreams. However, as soon as my parents discovered my windfall, they immediately began making demands. They insisted I hand over all the money so they could send Bella to an elite graduate program abroad, claiming she had always dreamed of studying in Europe, and this was my chance to make it happen. I was stunned. Here I was, presented with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change my life, and they expected me to simply give it all away to fund my sister's whims. When I told them I planned to use the money to start my business, they erupted in rage, calling me selfish and ungrateful, a terrible son and brother for not prioritizing family. They argued that I owed it to Bella to fund her dreams, given our parents' sacrifices for us growing up. I stood my ground, refusing to give them the money. I explained that my own goals and aspirations were just as valid as Bella's, but they wouldn't listen. They issued an ultimatum: either hand over the lottery winnings or move out immediately. It was a difficult decision, but I chose to leave. I packed my belongings and found a small apartment across town. My parents and sister haven't spoken to me since. Sometimes I feel guilty and question if I made the right choice. But another part of me feels free for the first time in my life. Update. It's been about 3 months since my initial post, and much has transpired. After moving out, I immersed myself in work, determined to save as much as possible for my business and to prove my capability. About a month after I left, my parents contacted me. Initially, I hoped for reconciliation, but it soon became evident they had an ulterior motive. They began by expressing how much they missed me and wanted to make amends, then revealed the true reason for their call. Bella had been accepted into her dream graduate program at a prestigious university in London. My parents were, of course, thrilled, but there was a catch. The tuition and living expenses were astronomical, far exceeding their savings. That's where I came in. They wanted me to loan them a substantial portion of my lottery winnings to fund Bella's education, promising repayment, a promise I knew was unlikely to materialize. When I hesitated, they piled on the guilt, emphasizing this was Bella's sole chance at her dreams, how devastated she'd be if she couldn't go, and how I'd be ruining her future if I didn't help. I stood firm, refusing to give them the money, reiterating my plan to use it for my business. They grew angry, again accusing me of selfishness. My mother even uttered, "I guess the money has changed you. You used to care about your family," a remark that deeply stung. I've always cared about my family, even when they seemed indifferent to me. But in that moment, I realized nothing I did would ever be enough for them. I would always be the villain in their eyes unless I surrendered everything they desired. So, I made a decision. I told them I was no longer their ATM, that I loved them, but I needed to prioritize myself for once. And if they couldn't respect my choices, then perhaps we needed some distance. They reacted poorly, with much yelling and crying. My dad declared I was dead to him if I didn't help Bella. Ultimately, I had to hang up on them mid-tirade. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Following that call, I blocked their numbers for a period, needing space to process everything and focus on my goals. I poured myself into planning my business launch, conducting extensive research, networking with other entrepreneurs, and developing a robust business plan. About a month ago, I took the leap and resigned from my day job to dedicate myself to my company full-time. It was terrifying, yet exhilarating. For the first time in my life, I felt truly in control of my future. I've spent the past few weeks setting up my workshop and organizing everything, hiring a few part-time seamstresses to assist with production. We're starting small with an online store, but I envision expanding into brick-and-mortar locations if things go well. My first collection of girls' frocks and dresses is almost ready for launch, and I'm both nervous and excited to see how they're received. I've poured my heart and soul into every design and genuinely believe in the quality of our products. Throughout this process, I've had moments of doubt, times when I questioned if I was making a huge mistake. But then I remind myself how far I've come and how much happier I am now that I'm living life on my own terms. I still haven't heard from my parents or Bella. Part of me misses them and wishes things were different. But another part of me feels lighter and freer than I have in years. I'm learning to be at peace with the distance and focusing on building the life I desire. Update. It's been approximately 6 months since my last update, and I have some significant developments to share. Firstly, the good news. My apparel business has truly taken off. Our online store has been performing exceptionally well, with consistent sales and a growing number of repeat customers. The frocks and dresses have been a resounding success, particularly our line of matching sibling outfits. We've even had some of our designs featured in popular parenting blogs. Roughly 2 months ago, I took a major step and opened a small brick-and-mortar boutique. It was nerve-wracking, but it has been thriving so far. There's something truly special about witnessing little girls trying on our dresses in person and twirling around the store. It makes all the hard work feel worthwhile. I've been working long hours, but I genuinely love what I do. For the first time in my life, I feel genuinely fulfilled and proud of my accomplishments. And the best part is, I achieved it all on my own terms. Now for the less favorable news. Last week, I received an unexpected call from my parents. I almost didn't answer, but an instinct urged me to. As soon as I picked up, I could sense something was terribly wrong. My mom was crying, and my dad sounded more subdued than I had ever heard him. They informed me that Bella had gotten into serious trouble. Apparently, she had been working part-time at a local boutique while applying to graduate schools. My parents had been financially supporting her, but it wasn't enough to sustain her extravagant lifestyle. Consequently, Bella had started stealing money from the cash register at work. She had managed to get away with it for a while, but she was finally caught red-handed attempting to pocket some cash. The store owner contacted the police, and Bella was arrested. My parents were frantic. They lacked sufficient funds for bail, let alone a lawyer. They were calling to ask, or rather, beg for my help. They needed several $1,000 to secure Bella's release from jail and initiate her legal defense. I was conflicted. On one hand, I was still hurt by how they had treated me, and a part of me wanted to tell them they had made their bed and now had to lie in it. But on the other hand, I knew jail could be a dangerous place, especially for a young woman. After careful consideration, I decided to help, but on my own terms. I agreed to pay Bella's bail, but I made it unequivocally clear that this was a one-time affair. I told my parents I would transfer the money directly to the bail bondsman, not to them. and emphasized that this did not signify an open invitation for them to request funds whenever they wished. They were grateful, albeit a bit taken aback by my conditions. For once, they didn't argue or attempt to guilt me into giving more. I believe the gravity of the situation had finally made them realize they couldn't continue taking me for granted. After Bella's release, my parents called again. This time, their tone was remarkably different. They actually apologized for how they had treated me over the years. They confessed that witnessing my success with my business while Bella faltered had opened their eyes to their unfairness. They asked if I would consider moving back home, expressing that they missed me and wished to make amends. I was touched, but also cautious. I told them I appreciated the apology, but that I was content living independently. I suggested we start with small steps, perhaps a monthly family dinner, to slowly rebuild our relationship. They agreed, seemingly understanding that they couldn't simply expect things to revert to normal overnight. We've had 2 dinners so far, and while things are still a bit awkward, it feels like we're making progress. As for Bella, she is facing some serious charges, and my parents are scrambling to find her a good lawyer. They haven't asked me for more money, which I appreciate. I hope this serves as a much-needed wake-up call for her to get her life in order.